Yes. Councilman Bliss?
Here.
Councilman Clark?
Here.
Councilman Corbett?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Hartwell?
I'm here.
Councilwoman Scott? Here. Councilman Soltis?
Here.
And Mayor Swanson.
Present. We're going to need a motion, I think, to have the meeting open to the public. Do we need a motion for that?
Nope.
No, okay, all right. Order of business then is a presentation of the city managers.
Your Honor, does
Yes.
anyone from the public have a comment on anything not on the agenda?
Yeah. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Anybody? Please, go ahead. Come. Yeah.
Your Honor, is this working over here? If you don't mind, ma'am, why don't you take the long walk and come on up here? Yeah, sure.
Pull that down. If you pull the mic, thank you.
My name's Gloria Moore. I live at 27368 Dartmouth. I had looked on a bit online about the budget and all that, and I was wondering about the liability insurance. I didn't notice anything about liability insurance, whether or not if I was to fall on the steps or whatever, if I was covered. Also, I was wondering, if there is liability insurance, could I be able to purchase a rider on it when I have an event? My own personal insurance for a baseball game was the estimate was over $300 just for a simple baseball game. There was no way I could afford that. So the only way I was able to do that is to have it on private property. And that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Two questions I heard. The first is, yes, we do have liability insurance through the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association. And secondly, our policy does not provide for private individuals to be able to purchase their own rider. I would encourage anyone in that situation to talk to their insurance agent, an adjuster, maybe seek out a different policy or an extension or something.
All right.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I don't understand the context of this conversation. Are we talking about a city-sponsored event? In other words, I have a Little League baseball meeting here on Friday night, and somebody trips leaving the building. Is that what we're talking about, or?
Your Honor, I guess I interpreted Ms. Moore's comment as a private event, not something that's a city-sponsored event.
My organization wanted to throw an event, a baseball game, and I was told that I had to use my own private insurance to be able to have it covered. I don't have money.
Your Honor, where would the baseball game be held?
I wanted to, I had filled out the quotes for be able to do it on city property, and the only way I could hold that baseball game was on private property, so a church covered.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor, yeah. If we're talking about a private event on city property, similar to like a pavilion rental, we do have insurance requirements for that.
All right.
I'll remind council that when we get into special events, we have low, medium, and high hazard coverage, and each of those has their own insurance requirement.
So in other words, then, Ben, it would be, for example, let's say I was going to sponsor a game out here. It would be like a rider on my homeowner's insurance policy is how you would understand it would be handled?
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yes, you would need to get that coverage through your own policy, and what the city would require would be based on the type of event, whether it's a game or someone who wanted to bring in a bounce house, for example, or something like that, and we would provide that information.
And you would require the city be named as a co-insured or something?
That's correct now.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody? Audience? If not, then the order of business is going to be the presentation of the city manager's fiscal year 2015-16 budget proposal, and it's a review of the city manager's proposed budget.
Yes, Your Honor. As has been our typical practice, staff and I have a presentation which we timed out to be about 20 minutes or a little more that we'd like to go through. So good morning, Mayor and Council, department heads, members of the public. As the city celebrates our 60 years of progress, I'm very pleased to propose to Council our financial plan for the next year in the form of our fiscal year 2016 budget. Before getting started, I would like to commend the work of the Deputy City Manager, department heads, and staff for an excellent effort in preparing a plan that continues to maintain existing services within limited revenues. I would also like to thank Council for their feedback and direction as part of the financial outlook and capital improvement plan, which are important parts of the budget development process. The proposed budget is presented in accordance with a detailed calendar that is contained in the policy document. Last fall, the annual budget process for 2016 formally began with the development of the long-range financial outlook presented to Council in November. Major capital items over $30,000 are included in the city's 5-year capital improvement plan, or CIP, which was presented to Council in January. Following the CIP, the city manager, deputy city manager, and staff began development of the proposed budget, which was submitted to Council on April 9th. The remaining highlights of the budget calendar include today's Council budget presentation and workshop, and the adoption of the budget and tax levy scheduled to take place on the second Monday in May, which this year is May 11th. In our budget presentation today, we plan to spend a few minutes discussing the guiding principles used in developing the budget, the financial challenges we continue to face, the overall proposed fiscal 2016 budget, and the internal priorities that were taken into account in balancing the general fund budget. Following this detailed discussion, we will briefly touch on other funds, including the proposed water and sewer rates for 2016. In preparing the budget, 5 major goals guided our process. First, staff have conservatively estimated revenues and expenditures, including a thorough review of each department with the respective department head, and a careful and updated analysis of projected revenues. Second, we balanced each special millage with the applicable expenses, focusing on millage reserves and prioritized needed projects. Third, the budget avoids the use of one-time revenues for ongoing expenditures such as salaries. Fourth, the budget only uses fund balance for planned one-time expenditures and maintains Council's target fund balance. And fifth, Madison Heights residents and businesses are not being asked for any significant new taxes or fees. Now Melissa will review our financial challenges.
The city's greatest financial challenge has been the reduction in taxable values and related refunds. The city's taxable value peaked in 2009 at $1.2 billion before starting a steep decline for the next 6 years, bottoming out in fiscal year 2015 as $780 million. This 35% reduction in taxable value, combined with reduced investment earnings, lower court revenues, and reduced revenue sharing, has been the greatest financial challenge the city of Madison Heights has ever faced. Fiscal year 2016 will be the first time since 2009 that property values are projected to rise, with an approximately 1.7% increase. State laws such as the Headley Amendment and Proposal A limit increases in property taxable values to 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. Not surprisingly, therefore, the city is not expected to return to those 2009 levels until fiscal year 2035. As shown on this slide, the city millage is proposed to decrease slightly in fiscal year 2016. 3 of the 10 millages have changing rates for fiscal year 2016. The fire station bond millage is being decreased to utilize accumulated fund balance and state reimbursements for personal property reductions related to past legislation. The senior citizen millage is being raised to the Headley limit in order to fund senior services, and the police and fire pension millage is increasing to cover budgeted city contributions. Overall, the millage is decreasing by 0.06 of a mil. There are 10,082 single-family homes and condominiums in Madison Heights. For fiscal year 2016, the average home market value is $76,720 with a taxable value of $32,210 and an average tax bill of $740 for city services. Next, Amy will discuss personnel services.
Throughout the economic downturn, City Council and staff responded to this challenge by reducing expenditures and enhancing revenues to close a gap of over $13.4 million as the city successfully controlled the impact of the financial crisis. The most significant changes during this period were the decreases in full-time staff of over 27% and a case-by-case review of vacant positions that continues into fiscal year 2016. Personnel services comprise almost $18 million, or 69% of the general fund budget. The fiscal year 2016 budget includes a net reduction of 3.6 full-time equivalencies. As indicated on this slide, the changes include the elimination of 3 vacant full-time positions as a result of the city's outsourcing of the information technology and building inspection functions, and 1 vacant part-time DPS laborer. On the expenditure side, the most significant financial challenges facing the city are the defined benefit plans for pension and retiree health care. Together, the liability for these 2 benefits average over 150% of base salary for employees, or $6.9 million across all funds. The largest budgeted fringe benefit cost is the employer's contribution to the employee pension funds, budgeted at $3.2 million in fiscal year 2016. The budget for the employer contribution to the police and fire pension fund is $1.6 million, or 28% of total wages. In regard to the MERS plan, the pension contribution is budgeted by a union group, averaging $24,000 per year per general employees. With regard to retiree health care, the most recent actuarial study is as of June 30th, 2012. At that time, the unfunded liability was calculated to be $67 million over the next 28 years. Based on 2 studies of these projected liabilities, the actuary has set contribution rates of 77% of police and fire payroll and from 6% to 136% for general employees. Due to budget constraints, the city is unable to fund the total annual required contribution. Instead, the budget includes $3.7 million funding, or 39% of payroll for police and fire, and between 6% and 54% of payroll for general employees. Ben will now continue the presentation with other funds.
The city's other funds face 2 major challenges. The first challenge, and perhaps the most serious, is the condition of the road system throughout the area and how to fund the major repairs and ongoing maintenance that are needed. Last December, the governor and legislature approved a package of bills in an effort to address the deteriorating road and bridge network statewide. Specifically, the legislation approved the May 5th statewide ballot proposal to amend the state constitution by increasing the general use and sales tax from 6% to 7%, eliminating the retail sales tax on gasoline and diesel fuel, removing higher education from the school aid fund, and amending the use tax distribution. Related statutory changes will result in an October 1, 2015 statewide wholesale tax on motor fuel, amendments to vehicle registration fees, and restoration of the earned income tax credit in tax year 2016. Current estimates from the state show that if the bill passes, Madison Heights would expect to receive additional annual funds of $1.2 million in Act 51 distributed road funding by fiscal 2018 and $265,000 in constitutional revenue sharing by fiscal 2016. The second major challenge continues to be the stabilization of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, or DWSD, through the creation and operation of the Great Lakes Water Authority, also known as GLWA. This past October, the legislative bodies of the City of Detroit, Macomb County, Oakland County, and Wayne County approved the creation of the GLWA. The authority operating agreement, signed by the participating counties in the City of Detroit, caps the wholesale revenue requirement from suburban customers like Madison Heights to 4% annually for the next 10 years. However, the GLWA does not become effective until July 1 of 2016, meaning that the water rate charged to Madison Heights for fiscal 2016 will be set by the DWSD. The rate increase charged by DWSD to Madison Heights for fiscal 16 will be over 11%. The city's customers will see in the fiscal 2016 budget reflects a combined 7% water and sewer increase, reflecting a pass-through of the DWSD 11% increase for water, along with a 3% increase by Oakland County for sewage treatment. The total budget equates to $47.3 million and includes funding of operating and capital purposes for 11 appropriated funds. This amount represents a $3.5 million, or 8% increase from the prior year amended budget. The operating budget is projected to increase by $2.2 million, or 6%, while the capital budget increases by $1.3 million, or 20%. The most significant change in the operating budget are related to personnel services. Although the budget includes a reduction of 3.6 full-time equivalencies in fiscal 2016, the personal services are still proposed to increase by $1.1 million related to funding employee benefits such as pension, retiree health care and medical insurance, as well as increases in other services and charges. When compared to the amended fiscal 2015 budget, total revenues are up in the overall budget by $2.3 million after factoring out use of fund balance and interfund transfers. Property taxes continue to be the largest city revenue source, representing 43% of the total fiscal 2016 budgeted revenues. Other major revenue sources include water and sewer fees, intergovernmental revenues, court fees, and other miscellaneous revenues. As mentioned earlier regarding the Detroit Water and Sewer Department has announced an over 11% increase to Madison Heights for water usage in fiscal 2016, and our Oakland County sewage disposal increase has been estimated 3%. This equates to a proposed combined rate increase to Madison Heights water and sewer customers of 7% in fiscal 2016. In fiscal 2016, staff continues to focus on several internal budget priorities identified in 2015. These internal budget priorities were considered by department heads when formulating their goals and objectives for next year. There are 5 major budget priorities, which include: 1, maintain fiscal responsibility to provide Madison Heights with a stable future; 2, advance technology in our daily operations in order to improve communication between city government, residents, and businesses; 3, invest in people to attract and retain talented employees and ensure the organization has a quality workforce to do the public's business, especially as the city's workforce is being asked to do more with fewer resources; 4, reinvest in the city's infrastructure and equipment in a sustainable manner to protect our existing investment, avoid higher costs in the future, and provide greater budgetary flexibility in subsequent years; and 5, engage residents to foster a positive image for Madison Heights. This slide shows several examples of proposed fiscal 2016 departmental objectives that relate to the 5 overall budget priorities. I won't read each of these items, but will point out several examples, including the evaluation and continued growth of the My Life employer-sponsored health and wellness center, an analysis of our roads, infrastructure, and service fleet toward a recommendation for a potential R3 road improvement program and or a V3 vehicle replacement program, and public safety training from the police department, including senior citizen safety and gun safety education. Melissa will now continue the presentation with a review of capital outlay.
Capital outlay purchases total $7.6 million for all funds and $1.2 million for the general fund. The majority of purchases are funded through dedicated millages such as proposals B, R2, and L. The general fund purchases that are not being funded through dedicated millages include improvements to city-owned property, such as replacement of the district court's rooftop HVAC units, carpet for City Hall Council Chamber and Executive Conference rooms, and blinds for the City Council Chamber, the Senior Center, Red Oaks Friendship Woods Nature Center parking lot, and Civic Center Park walking path improvements. Technology improvements include updates to business and animal license software, a new citywide phone system, and an exchange email server. Other purchases not funded through dedicated millages are fire department equipment, including fire hoses, 2 automated external defibrillators, fire engine-mounted VTAC communication equipment, and police equipment, including 15 in-car video cameras and a detective vehicle, and the first of 3 phases of funding for the replacement and or decommissioning of the city's underground gasoline diesel fuel storage tanks. Other funds include capital outlay of $6.4 million. Most of this amount, or $6.1 million, is budgeted for road rehabilitation and reconstruction projects funded by proposal R2 Neighborhood Roads Program, major road sectional work, sidewalk repair, and water main replacements related to R2 projects. The remaining planned purchases include 1 water and sewer van, resurfacing of the Department of Public Service parking lot, Phase 1 funding for a replacement salt containment structure, an auto lift for motor pool, and an updated meter reading collector for the water and sewer fund. The city's successful management of our financial constraints has presented us with both new challenges and opportunities. As of July 30th, 2014, the general fund unreserved fund balance was $5.7 million. Based on the budgeted use of fund balance, the city projects this fund balance will be $4.7 at the end of fiscal year balance equal to or above a minimum of 10% of budgeted expenditures. Staff was mindful of this policy as we worked to propose the fiscal year 2016 budget for council's consideration. The graph above details the general fund expenditures, revenues, level of fund balance, and the level of fund balance required to meet this council policy. Before turning to other funds, we would also like to look at the city's debt situation. The city is allowed by statute to issue debt to provide for the acquisition and construction of major capital facilities. As of June 30th, 2015, the city will be at 5.3% of the city's debt limit of $81.7 million, which is based on 10% of assessed valuation. The city has general obligation bonds outstanding in the amount of $3.2 million of an original $5.9 million fire station bond issue and $1.1 million of the original $1.5 million water and sewer bonds. The city is also responsible for our share of 8 bonds related to the GWK Drain project for a total of $7 million. The city's bond ratings were reevaluated in December of 2013 when S&P upgraded the city's bond rating from A+ stable to AA- due to continued strong financial management. Ben will now conclude the presentation with a review of other funds.
The Major Street Fund is projected to be up by $760,000 or 60% in fiscal 2016. A total of $820,000 is allotted for much-needed sectional repairs in addition to joint and crack sealing, all in an effort to extend the useful service life of the identified roads until additional funding is available for full rehabilitation. The budget meets this increased funding need through a use of fund balance of $430,000. As indicated on the slide, the roads targeted for next year include Whitcomb from Barrington to Townley, East Lincoln from Wolverine to DeQuinder, Cousins from 10 Mile to the eastbound Service Drive, Campbell from 12 to 13 Mile, southbound Stevenson Highway and associated turnarounds, Edward from Mandolin to Whitcomb, and 11 Mile from I-75 to DeQuinder, and industrial. The local street budget decreases by $322,000 in 2016 to $3.3 million, which includes the 2016 Proposal R2 reconstruction projects of East Hardwood from Cousins to Dye, Forner and Mark, and East Lincoln east of John R. The budget incorporates a drawdown of reserve funds of $962,000 for scheduled R2 projects. This year's work also includes sectional concrete repairs on Harlow from non-R2 road funding. Regarding the Water and Sewer Fund, the city continues to do an excellent job of reducing our internal cost and rebuilding cash reserves. The budget includes $1.25 million for the replacement of Proposal R2 related water mains and $945,000 for non-R2 water main projects, which are funded from a planned use of reserves. The budget also includes Phase 1 of a salt containment structure replacement, removal and replacement of the parking lot at the Department of Public Services Ajax facility, a portion of Phase 1 of 3 for our underground fuel tanks, a motor pool auto lift, Phase 1 of 2 funding for a replacement box van, and 25% of the cost of the information technology upgrades outlined earlier in the presentation. All of these projects were programmed in the capital improvement plan for fiscal 2016. The past year has brought about significant changes for water with the bankruptcy of the City of Detroit and the subsequent Great Lakes Water Authority, which was formulated in the fall of 2014. Until the authority has been in place for a few years and rates stabilize, staff believes there remains a need to maintain a healthy cash balance, which was at $7.8 million as of June 30, 2014. As stated above, $945,000 of this amount is being programmed to fund much-needed R2 water main replacements. So for the balance of today's meeting, the Deputy City Manager and I would like to answer any questions on the presentation and make use of the line item budget to walk through the general fund revenues and expenditures and other funds. Please keep in mind that if expenditures are increased or revenues decreased, we will need Council's direction to rebalance the proposed budget to compensate for those Council requested changes. After today's budget workshop, the plan would be to move forward with the May 11th public hearing and the adoption of the budget. And this concludes our presentation, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a nice presentation. Does anybody have any questions
Your Honor,
on the presentation? Mr. Corbett.
just one clarification back on the, well, it was page 13. It was entitled Proposed FY 2016 budget, all funds. There's a 3% for debt. That includes the millage debt. Fire station, okay. That's it, thank you, that was all.
Is that it? Any other questions from
Your Honor?
anybody?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, also included in that is the GWK debt and I believe the automated meter reading debt.
Entire debt repayments for next year.
Okay, but the bulk of that, the push on that one, I would assume would be the fire station.
Actually, the largest amount of that is the GWK bond repayment. The repayment of the fire station is only around $300,000.
What was what's the term on the GWK? Was that a shorter term?
No, there's probably 7 different bonds in that. They
Of
all
course.
have different terms, and I think the longest one goes to probably, well, they're in the schedule, they're in the Manitowoc documents, but they go at least until 2020.
Okay.
They all are different. The fire station bond is $340,000 in that.
So some number greater than that represents the bonds on the,
GWK is $1,033,000.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Follow-up question?
Yes,
For
sir.
the GWK, I see we're paying a lot now, we said like $1,000,000 or $900,000 a year for the next 5-7 years, but then it drops down to like $70,000 a year. Can you explain that, or is there any way to renegotiate that to balance that out?
Let me find the bonds in this policy.
Oh, okay.
There's 7 different bonds, so some of them mature.
For several,
On page 74 of the policy document, there's 7 different bonds. The total combined issue was $125 million, and Madison Heights share was $13.5 million. So those bonds all mature sooner. Like Series A, I think, was issued in 2000, so it probably matures.
oh, okay.
Yeah, Your Honor, this incorporates a series of projects. I believe there were 7 or 8 different contracts to renovate the RTF, the George W. Kuhn Treatment Facility, totaling 160 or 65 million, if my memory's correct, of which we have a share of it.
Any other questions?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
there's no chance to refinance that debt? That's a question.
They have refinanced part of it. They refinanced.
Oh, that's the
one
one
of
where
series.
somebody else refinances and then we
It's
get
all controlled
passed.
by
Okay,
Oakland
yeah,
County, and
that's
they
right.
send us debt repayment schedules. But as Brian pointed out, in the year 2024 is the last year we have, that's $711,000 we pay, and then next year it drops right down to $73,000.
We were able to refinance a few years ago the fire station debt. We
Yeah,
caught
saved
lightning
quite a bit of
once,
money
but
on that.
yeah.
Oakland County
But-
stays on it pretty well, and when they can refinance, they do.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I had a question on another subject regarding debt capacity. That was slide 21. Now, I'm just looking at the history for the last 10 years, and we're very thoughtful and conservative on using our debt capacity. What's the theory or the authorization that we need 10% of assessed evaluation? I mean, that seems so above and beyond. And is there any way to change that to enhance our bond rating?
That's just the state law for the debt limit.
State-
A city could not issue debt more than 10% of their assessed. We've never been anywhere near that.
So not more, but could we do less? And if we did authorize a lower capacity, would that enhance our bond rating in the eyes of the S&P and those guys?
No.
No?
I don't think that they've ever taken that into consideration. Their real factors that they hit on home with when they interview me all the time is the financial policies of the council, so the financial forecast is big to them. Our local economy, they always want to know the biggest taxpayers in the city and just overall ability to collect. So of course, the stronger the economy is, the better off. That's how come our bond rating dropped during the recession a little, was just the economy and around the areas around us.
Okay, that got me thinking. I'm trying to remember the list of our biggest taxpayers. I remember Myers always on the top of the list.
Kmart's big deal.
Kmart, that's the question. Could the loss of Kmart affect that?
Well, they're still paying the taxes and everything for 7
Oh,
years.
that's right. There is a landowner that's,
Yeah, There's an
Still
existing
viable.
lease that's still continuing on the Kmart. So.
Right.
That's fine, thanks.
That's it. Any other questions?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
And I got a question on slide 6, in terms of the senior citizens millage rate, that it went up. How exactly does that work? What is it about? How does it work?
Your Honor, we adjust that millage, or at least we take a look at that millage annually based on what our requirements for service are for expenditures up to the limit.
So you determine the need and then raise it accordingly? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, the limit, the highest the senior citizen millage can be is .4751. That's our limit. And we have not levied up to that limit, but there is a need at the senior center to levy that much.
No, I agree. I just was trying to understand how that
That's the
worked.
highest. We can't change that millage above
Right.
.4751.
We didn't include the Headley column on the slide, but some of the millages have Headley rollback limits.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Actually, I had another one, Your Honor. Ben, you went over in slide 12, you talked about that new water authority, and you were talking about in 2016, 11%. Can you go over that again a little bit slower and just explain that, please? How does it work?
Yeah, the two figures, the 11% is the wholesale customer rate that the DWSD charges the city of Madison Heights for the sale of water. And similarly, Oakland County charges us a wholesale rate on the sewer side, which we're looking at 3%. So those two things taken together, and you have to keep in mind it's not a one for one. In other words, if the question is, well, why aren't the residents seeing an 11% increase, because that's what we're being charged, there are other components of water and sewer revenue and services other than just the wholesale charge that we pay Detroit. But those are the two biggest ones.
Anything else? Mr. Zolder, all set?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, then let's go through the proposed line item budget page by page. And with your permission, we will start on page 1. And this is revenues. Any question on any page, please feel free to ask the questions. Page 2 is revenues also.
I have a question,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor. Some of the departments, looks like they're underperforming this year, and I'm interested to know. I guess to take a step back, when I review the budget, the line item budget, I look for the trends from last year, what the activity actually is this year, and then what we're guessing for next year. Or not guessing, but budgeting for next year. And there's three departments that jumped out to me. I look at court revenues, and I know it's hard to put a finger on court revenues, but I see last year the amended budget was just over $1 million in court fines. We're not even to 500,000 yet. And so where do we come up with 860,000? And then same page, page 2, down with recreation fees. We're dramatically underperforming in recreation fees. Maybe we just haven't hit the season. And then police revenues. I did have a question about under miscellaneous revenue. There says police revenue, and it looks like we're estimating like a 30% drop. So just if you can touch on any of those subjects: court fines, recreation fees, and police revenue.
Your Honor, let me take the second one first.
Okay.
In regard to recreation fees, those are a direct result of how we structure our recreation programs. And Mr. Vitale's here, but let me lead off by saying over the last couple of fiscal years, I'd say for the last 3, we've been fine-tuning our recreation program every year to meet demand. And sometimes that results in a change for certain contractors or certain programs where we're not paying a fee to a contractor and we're not getting a service back in. The best example I can give you of that is Tai Chi and martial arts, which is a significant component So those recreation revenues will fluctuate based on how our contractors are set up. So it's not necessarily an indicator of we're doing fewer classes or offering less programming, but it's a reflection of how the program is structured, and that's for recreation. In regard to court fees, we have the judge and the administrator here and our police chief. I guess I'd ask if any of them have any comments on court fees. We simply take the $860,000 that you see for proposed, and that's based on our actuals coming in and what we project as a trend based on the actual, not necessarily the prior year amended budget.
Can you explain the court fines? Are those fines established by city ordinance, or are they mandatory state fines? Can you break that down? Is that possible, or, I mean... Sorry. There's a million people watching at home.
We have to get you on the record, you understand.
We receive a recommendation from the State Court Administrator's Office each year, and based on those, we set the fines for the court here in Madison Heights. Right now, we're at the top of the recommendations that we receive each year. So we are unable to raise our fine schedule at all.
Okay, great.
Your Honor, just so I can understand, you were done, sir? Or for the moment, or? Go ahead. No.
No, that's fine. No, jump.
I was just going to ask, you were saying how you came up with that 800,000 number. Now, how do you do that again?
We look at trends with actuals, and we've got 472,000.
Actual assessed fines or actually actual collected fines?
Actual revenue coming in to the city.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good question.
Well,
Are there
because
fines that are unpaid? Do we have a collection department in our court?
We utilize every avenue that we can to collect those fees. We show cause the defendants, we issue bench warrants. We have a tax intercept program with the state of Michigan so that we notify the state of Michigan to hold any tax refunds. In fact, last month I was sharing with Judge, we received like almost $28,000 from the state of Michigan just for tax intercept, which is the most we've ever received. So.
well, where I was actually going more with that is because I get a ticket and it says I got to pay $100 on it, but I get in front of the judge and I plead to something else, and now it's these numbers aren't right, but now I pay $50 instead. I guess I'm just asking which numbers are you using for the actual that I actually am fined, or the actual ticket that was written, because they can be, I would suspect they're often two different things.
Your Honor, if you look at the 860,000 and go over to the fiscal 2013-14 activity, it's pretty much a straight line from there. Okay. So we're basing it on prior year actuals.
So I think I'm trying to understand this, or I think I'm beginning to understand. So court fines are recommended by a state court administrator office, and for the most part, those are not up to the discretion of our court. However, there are other fines and charges that are up to our discretion. For example, probation oversight charges.
We receive recommendations on that also, but the judge reviews each file and determines what he's going to assess in terms of fines and costs. He has to go by statute. He's only allowed to assess certain amounts on certain cases.
Okay. That's fine.
Any other questions?
Your Honor?
Yes.
I think Councilman Corbett hasn't gotten a ticket in a while.
Yeah.
It's more like 170.
It sounds like Councilman Sultans may have.
And you're absolutely right.
Mr. Mayor, police revenue, that's under miscellaneous revenue, bottom of page 2. Last year budgeted 92,000, this year budgeted 59,000, 30% drop. There's no explanation on this line item.
Again, Your Honor, it's based on our looking back at actuals and trying to project.
What's the source of the revenue?
I'm going to let, Your Honor, I'm going to ask Chief Roberts to come up.
Morning, Chief.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Morning.
That account consists of several items. It's impound releases, so when the officers impound a vehicle and the person actually goes to retrieve the vehicle, they have to pay a fee that is in that category. The auctions, where Service Tow auctions the vehicle off if someone does not come and pick their vehicle up. It consists of PBT testing fees, which we do at our police department, LCC, liquor control investigations, E-crash, in UD10 revenue, which is accident reports where someone seeks to have a copy of an accident report, garbage day permit fees, and also police records. So it's many different components, and depending upon how many accidents, who needs copies of reports, how many vehicles impounded, etc., it actually can change that account, that revenue source.
Okay, is there one, there was a lot to that list. Is there one that fluctuates dramatically year to year that it's really hard to?
No, it doesn't look like anything changes dramatically. Possibly LCC investigations. We've seen those go down because the change at the state, whereas before we'd have to do LCC investigations for all licensing requests, and now the state changed that, and we only get very few LCC investigations.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Chief. With that, then, let's go into page 3, under revenues. Page 4 is appropriations. Mayor and council, any questions? Page 5, district court. Also page 6, any questions?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just a general question for the judge and just a nod or a waiver. Are you, it's always been a concern of mine, security at the court. Are you generally satisfied with the level of security being provided there? That's all I need to hear. Thank you, sir.
You're still here. Thank God.
Well, we have a little higher standards, but yeah.
Page 7, city manager. Elections.
Yes, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mayor. A big jump in part-time and seasonal. Is that explained by just having a May election?
Councilman, or Mayor Pro Tem, that is because there was going to be one election next fiscal year, which was the city election, and now we're going to have possibly up to 3.
Thanks.
Any other questions on elections?
Just a quick question. Did we, when was the last time we increased the pay for the workers? I'm asking because that was an issue towards the end of MJ's tenure.
Just last year, this year.
Okay.
Oh, I
Yes,
noticed
sir.
I don't know, for the first time I've noticed in this budget, we're naming counties that charge us for this. And so this is one of the pages where we say Oakland County is charging us $990. And that really started to jump out at me as I was flipping through this. Oh, Oakland charges this, Macomb charges that. What's this $990, and why is the county just not eating that? I don't.
They changed the state law that cities no longer canvass their elections, and the county now canvasses them, and they charge us for that service. But we probably took a revenue, I don't know, I wasn't here before, but I'm assuming we took a revenue from that before for that service.
Okay, and that's through the county clerk. She
Correct.
runs the elections?
The Oakland County Board of Canvassers.
Oh, Oakland County, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on elections? Page 9, city assessor. Page 10, legal. Page 11, city clerk. Oh, here we go.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Page 12, human resources. No questions? Board of review, on page 13.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir. Mr.
If
Farber.
we could go back into human resources for a moment. I see at the bottom under the notes,
Wait a minute, go back to what I didn't hear you.
One page.
just one page, back to human resources.
Yeah.
At the bottom, we're noting the M-Life Health and Wellness Center. So I was hoping that staff could elaborate on the usage, and if that usage were to grow, how would that affect that line there?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Well, the second part first, if utilization grows, that's a good thing, because that will pretty much steer us toward inviting additional employers to come in. So that would help offset our expenditures. But it's the 1/3 share that we share with Royal Oak and Ferndale. We start out very well with utilization, but remember, we were in the health risk assessments at that point. I would still characterize our utilization as good, and in fact, staff and I had a meeting with the Care Here representative this week, and we asked him how things were going, and he was pleased and said we were where we needed to be overall.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Page 13 then, Board of Review. Page 14, General Administration. Likewise, page 15. Page 16, Finance.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
In page 15, I was hoping that the staff could go through just briefly what constitutes phone system maintenance. I know we're looking into replacement of our phone system in a later section of the budget, but the $19,745 that goes into phone system maintenance, is that just replacing hardware, or is that manpower?
Your Honor, that's a contractual obligation that we have for maintenance support that we pay to Suntel for our existing phone system. So it's a combination of licensing, maintenance, support calls. I don't believe there's any major capital purchases included in that number.
Yes, Your Honor. Does that is that up for renewal each year? If we were going with a different phone system or a different provider, would that then go away, or are we locked into a multiple-year contract with that maintenance?
Your Honor, I understand that our representative from BPI has been in renegotiations with Suntel to lower that number. But to answer your question, Councilman, if we switched phone systems and completely got away from our Suntel system and in favor of something else, that number would go away. In fact, in terms of the evaluation of the future phone system, we're looking at that number as a potential offset for ongoing costs.
It seems like it's higher than it should be with the amount of handsets and hardware in use. I mean, if you estimate 10% turnover in handsets with maybe an $80 replacement fee or repair fee per handset, this $19,000 is probably a little bit high. So I'm glad to hear that they're renegotiating that, and that it could go away depending on what change we make to the phone system. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other questions on page 15, General Administration? Page 16, Finance. Page 17, Information Technology. And Municipal Buildings on page 18. Page 19, Custodial and Maintenance. Page 20, Police. Any questions on this page? Page 21, Police also. Page 22, Fire. Any questions?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
On 21, if we could go back just one moment.
Sure.
We have the police video cameras listed there. it looks like we've got a grant as well as some from the general fund. I know I've asked staff to look into the officer cameras, so the on-officer cameras, and if this came in under budget, would that be a place for, I think it was $9,000 was the bid that we got on that, or would we find an alternative source to fund that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Your Honor, the proposed budget does not include police officer body cams. It is something that, as the councilman noted, we are studying right now, but we do not have funding in the budget for that.
In this, the bid for the in-car video cameras, is that based on manufacturer suggested retail pricing?
I believe that's, Your Honor, I believe that's based on a direct quote that we received
Direct quote.
From the vendor.
Okay, thank you.
From a vendor, I should say.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I'd like to put a put a pin in it. I'd like to come back to this topic at the end if we could. Thank you.
You'd like to what?
I had to think about it. I lost the word thumbtack. Let's put a thumbtack in it. We'll come back to this subject when we're done at the end, and you ask for general comments again.
Maybe dog ear.
Yeah, dog ear it, sure. I'll go with that.
All right, then. Page 22, fire. Any questions on that? Likewise, page 23. Community development, page 24. Are there any questions? Community development also on page 25. Page 26.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor. Page 24, 25, community development. This is where the budget reflects the change from an in-house building inspector to a contracted a building inspector. How does the price compare from our past employee to the contractor? Are we going to continue with the contractor, or are we going to go back to in-house?
Good morning, Mayor, City Council.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
This is actually, we were holding the building inspector position for a full fiscal year, this current fiscal year, until we evaluated. We now have the full-time building official on board. That position is going to be an inspection building official, so he will be handling many of the building inspector tasks and roles. So what we're doing now is we will continue our current relationship with Safe Built relative to building inspections, but the hours have been reduced, so it'll be a substantially reduced building inspection contract, and then some of the inspection burden will be handled by our new building official, who is on board and already up and running.
So I guess I don't understand. We've hired someone, so there's a member of a bargaining unit now?
Yes, the
And
building
there's
official.
also the contractor.
The building official position has been hired. He started 2 weeks ago, and he's doing inspections on a daily basis. And the building inspector position, we have reduced by roughly 50% the contractual hours that are expected for that position.
Okay. Does what you just say show up in this two-page budget? That
Yes.
we now have the in-house official and the contracted inspector?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, Your Honor, you'll
Yes.
see a reduction in full-time wages of $50,000. And in evaluating this over the year, one of the theories that we looked at was utilizing more of the building official for inspection services during the off-season, which results in that reduction round.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody else? Under community development? Okay, let's go to page 26, streets. 27, solid waste. Solid waste.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
For solid waste, page 27, we contract with Rizzo, and it was a long-term contract. I remember
Right.
Ben
10
was
years.
helpful getting that signed. When does that expire?
Your Honor, it's
Yes.
a 10-year agreement that expires in 2020.
2020. I mean, in my line of work, everything's negotiable. Have we approached them to try to renegotiate the numbers, maybe extend the term of that contract if we can get a better rate on something?
Your Honor, we started out the first year, or excuse me, the first 5 years were basically with no increase, and then we see a blip in year 6, and then it smooths out again. We have not approached them at this point, Mayor Pro Tem, but my experience in regard to the prior contract, which was a 10-year agreement with Waste Management, is that there was interest expressed toward the end of that agreement too, Mayor Pro Tem, by the incumbent to negotiate. So, I mean, is it something we could take a look at? Certainly. In fact, I know Mr. Vitale's looking at some potential changes that we don't want to talk about, we're not prepared to talk about now, but could result in a renegotiation too. So it's not out of the question, but we got a very, very favorable contract.
I just want to make the record clear. You know, solid waste is a very competitive industry, especially in Southeast Michigan. And I am not married to our current contractor in any sense, more than just numbers. So if they cannot be competitive, I'd be willing to send an intention to them that we're going to either move on or just, that's all.
Your Honor, I think at the very least it certainly couldn't hurt to go out and take an updated snapshot of what the current rates are out there.
That's a good
from the
idea.
vendors.
Okay. Next then is recreation, page 29. Nature Center, page 30. Any questions? 31, parks. 32, senior citizens.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Quick question. In terms of the proposed budget here, the senior nutrition Meals on Wheels, there's no cost associated to us for that, or is that somewhere in here that I'm missing?
Your Honor, no, that's a federally funded program administered through the Area Agency on Aging, 1B. The city does not directly subsidize that program. But there are in-kind, obviously, the facility, the kitchen, the volunteers, the staff. There's an in-kind contribution. So,
Is there a way that we can possibly, do add to it, subsidize it further to maybe get additional seniors that need homebound delivery?
Your Honor, that would be a policy change that would be subject to council's consideration.
But it's possible then, right? Subject to that. Because I get a report. I understand. I don't mean to put you on the spot. So I got the report that you gave us, and for the homebound, those are the ones I'm concerned with primarily. There were like close to 1,800 delivered on a monthly basis. That's like 90, 100 a day. I'm sure we could, if there were more, I'm sure there's more out there, is what I'm getting at. So I implore the council to kind of look at that as well and take that into consideration.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
I certainly, if the council, you know that there are more, is there a way to dig this out? Because that certainly would be important information, and at the very least, the first stop would be the agency that's supplying the food. I guess my question would be, if you hear about a senior, and this is more generic, if you hear about a senior that needs food or maybe might be eligible, who do you report that to? I guess we'll start that way.
Your Honor, there's one of several. You can report it directly to the senior center, and we'll certainly pass it along, or to area agency. But I would think the most direct source would be Emerald Foods, the actual provider, and Emerald's volunteers. But any of those parties can take a referral if someone knows of a senior in need.
I think the first step is I'm not sure all the seniors know about it, and I'm not sure.
That's fair, yeah.
I'm not sure they have an avenue to vocalize the need, other than, I guess, a phone call to the senior center. But they may not know it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the first step is kind of a word of mouth or get the word out.
Your Honor, I think clearly there's been a shift over the years that have been borne out. It's been borne out in the numbers away from the congregate center toward the homebound. We still have usage in the congregate center, of course, but it's not nearly what it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
So the need, you're saying the need decreased over the
I'm
last-
saying that, I mean, from my perspective and looking at the numbers, there's been a shift toward the homebound,
No, I'm sorry.
away from people wanting to come
Right.
to the congregate center for.
Right, and that could be for various reasons. They don't have
Various
transportation, yeah. And it's also interesting in that report, that one month it was almost 1,900, and then it went down to almost 1,500. So I just feel that there's something going on that needs to probably be addressed.
And Your Honor, that month could be indicative of fewer days
Fewer
or
days.
holiday, or there could be other factors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Page 34, library. Any questions on that? Also page 35. Page 36, insurance. Any questions? Transfers out on page 37. Page 38, revenues under major streets.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
on page 38, we're now talking about major streets, a different fund. Page 38's revenues, at the very bottom, it says that we're going to need to use $429,000 of fund balance. To me, that suggests, that this fund wasn't balanced, so we needed to dip into our savings. Was there one project in particular that we need to use $400,000 of fund balance? It doesn't seem like a common thing for this fund to use fund balance.
Your Honor, I don't believe there's one project, Mayor Pro Tem, that we're plugging the money from fund balance to fund, but it's a matter of covering the entire list of the projects that we're just carrying forward from fund balance. And these, I mean, these are not new projects that are coming up. They're all programmed out in the CIP as best we can.
They're what kind of projects?
Programmed in the CIP.
Okay.
Any other questions? Page 39, construction. Page 40, maintenance. Page 41, traffic services.
Your Honor, here's,
Yes, sir.
May I?
Sure.
Here's another example, page 41, traffic service, in the notes, actually, under contractual service. Another example of us having to pay Oakland County and Macomb County, or maybe Oakland County roads, Macomb County roads. What is it that we're paying for? I'm assuming it's their roads, their signals. What are we paying for?
Your Honor,
Sure.
we're paying for traffic signal maintenance that is based on cost participation agreements that date back to the 70s, 60s, when the initial signal was put in. So it's a shared arrangement. We are not talking just about signals on county roads. That these signals are on local roads, on city roads, but they're under the jurisdiction of Oakland County, the Road Commission for Oakland County. Otherwise, it would have to fall on the city to maintain these signals. In fact, there is one signal that's being maintained by the city of Royal Oak, and you see the figure of 1,500, and that is just for one signal, and that's a 50-50 share with Royal Oak. But these agreements go back decades to when the signals were initially put in, and they're set up by percentage. I do task DPS to look at those bills every month to make sure it's just maintenance that's being covered and not some major capital upgrade that hasn't been agreed to or at least talked about with the city ahead of time.
Thank you. All set, sir? Okay. Page 42, winter maintenance. Page 43, administration. Page 44, county roads. transfers out on page 45. Page 46, revenues, local streets. Page 47, appropriations under construction. Page 48, maintenance. Page 49, traffic service. Page 50, winter maintenance. Page 51, administration. Page 52, transfers out. Page 53, parks, maintenance and improvements. That's revenues. Page 54, appropriations, maintenance. Page 55, Downtown Development Authority, and this is revenues. Downtown Development Authority appropriations on page 56. Page 57, drug forfeitures. Any questions? Page 58, police forfeitures. Again, drug.
Your Honor?
Yes.
A quick question on that. Chief, if you could, page 58, we might have talked about this last year, but in 2012-13, the drug forfeiture is like 97,000. Now it's proposed to like 50. What's the difference between? Why did it decrease like that? Is it because we didn't have the special investigations unit, or?
The drug forfeitures have gone down. That's based upon the cases that the narcotics enforcement team had and managed, and if they got forfeitures or not. The projected revenue for this year is down, or this upcoming budget is down to $10,000, and that's because that narcotics officer was placed back on the road in road patrol because of the shortage on the road.
Your Honor, just to add to what Chief said, if you look back to 2012-13, that $97,000 figure on the expenditure side, 37,000 of that was, I believe, that was for laptops at that time, purchased through forfeiture.
Yes.
So $37,000 one-time capital expenditure.
Okay.
And there were also, I think that 55,000, that to me that looks like 2 vehicles.
Just so it happens. Just
So
because
it's not, yeah, it's all in capital expenditures, Councilman.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Page 59, community development, that's the revenues. And page 60 is the appropriations on community development. Page 61, revenues, special assessment, revolving, it said. And page 62.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
am
That's okay.
going back to page 60, community development appropriations. And then I guess even back to page 59 for community I'm trying to synthesize this. It looks like, okay, for revenues, it's the same from last year to this year, 117,000. So expenditures are the same this year, 117,000 last year, 117,000 this year. But I look at contractual services, the home chore, yard service, lawn mowing, and snow removal has been cut in half. What, I mean, we're cutting the services to the community in half. So, I mean, what am I trying to say?
Why
The
are we-
balance is budget, but the budget is balanced, but we're cutting services to the public. So can you explain that?
Yeah,
What am I missing?
Your Honor, basically the program contractually includes the home chore, lawn cutting, and snow maintenance, and those amounts are reduced to reflect the budget and the revenues coming in. We have to make some program changes or evaluation with regard to balancing between the home chore, the yard service. So, yes, I think it's a fair statement.
So by sacrificing services, spending less on contractual services like lawn mowing, we're cutting there, so we must be spending money more elsewhere. Where are we spending that? The
Mr.
money
Mayor.
we just cut on lawn mowing has got to be spent elsewhere. That's the point.
Jim's going to answer.
Mr. Mayor, Council, there's been no cut. What occurred is a change in HUD regulations. We used to be able to bank 3 years of funding through Community Development Block Grant. We are now required to only bank 2 years. So last year, what you're seeing is an artificially high expenditure. We actually mowed more lawns later into the season to help out the seniors because we were required to either use the money last year or lose it. And therefore, that's why you see the differential. This year's allocation continues on with what we've done in years past.
That's a really good answer. I don't know if you noticed that Mr. Schaefer just, instead of looking just at last year, he went back 2-3 years, and that was a good point. You good?
Your Honor, we are, though, going forward, looking and going to have to make some decisions about how we're prioritizing between services in the future, between lawn service and snow removal, and we're going to have to make some program changes going forward. If the current HUD methodology stays, and we've got to do some reprioritizing.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what they're doing, HUD nationwide, is finding that communities, not Madison Heights, but communities are not spending their money allocated to them, and so what they're doing is each year they're adding additional restrictions to force communities to spend it in a more timely fashion. For those of us that do, what it does is it simply puts an additional burden on us that forces us to spend the money in a way that's not the most efficient. But it's unfortunately, we're saddled with that from HUD.
Why is it we just cut the grass in the south end, DDA? What's the purpose of that? Just that area?
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is regarding Community Development Block Grant funding.
Yeah.
This is citywide based on income or disability for our residents. What I think you're referring to is the Downtown Development Authority's right-of-way mowing, and that is limited to only the DDA area because those are DDA restricted funds.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So, Ben, you're saying possibly next fiscal year we have to prioritize?
Next fiscal.
Not this current budget, but
16,
but,
17.
Yeah, we're going to carry it forward one more year with the same allocation, but going forward from that.
Okay. Anything? Thanks, Jim. On page 60, community appropriations, community development, special assessment, revenues. On page 61, again, apportionment, special assessments, and transfers out. Page 63, revenues, the fire station bond, and appropriations on the debt service on page 64. Page 65, water and sewer, and this is a revenue from that. And appropriations on page 66.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Page 65, water and sewer revenues.
Yeah.
Inquiry is about the sales. It looks like we're anticipating consumption. Water consumption will be up in the city just by a little bit. It looks like 200,000, about 10% maybe. And I know we get pressure from Detroit Water to control how much our consumption jumps from year to year. Where do we get this estimate, and does that fit in with just the standards that DWSD wants?
In the past, when I estimated the increase in water and sewer rates, the past meaning the past 5 years, I would put in a factor of 3% decline because I assumed if water rates were going up, people would use less water. I think we've now maxed that out, and I looked at the history of actual utilization, so I increased that to 100% this year, so that's 3% of the increase. The rest of that comes from the rate increase that we discussed during the presentation, which is 7%.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Any other questions? Water and sewer? Page 69. Wait a second, I'm getting pages stuck together here. Page 67, water system maintenance. And page 68, water tapping and installation. Page 69, water depreciation. 70, sewer disposals. 71, sewer maintenance. 72, sewer depreciation. 73, water general service building. 74, water and sewer, the general administration. Likewise, page 75. Page 76, water and sewer capital outlay.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just a very quick question. I noticed that it reminded me, the certified operator agreement with the city of Hazel Park, has that been extended for another year? Or are we added on the term on that?
Your Honor, I know we're dwindling with the hours that we have Mr. Young for, but Joe, do you want to address the term?
Your Honor?
Counsel?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
I've asked Ben and Melissa to extend that contract for another year, which would end in July of 2016. And that's in light of the fact that Corey Almus has received his S1 certification and will be ready at some point to take on that operator in charge role. But we need kind of a grooming period, so I asked them to extend that contract to 2016 in light of that. So after that point, when we feel that Corey is ready to assume the responsibilities that are required by the MDEQ and what have you, we will terminate that agreement at that point.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Corey.
Yes.
Very good. Good job.
Any other questions? Page 77 then, debt service. And the motor pool on page 78, revenues from that. And page 79 is revenues from the motor pool. And ladies and gentlemen, that ends our line item budget presentation. Is there any questions on any items that we have discussed?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
we have to go back.
Yeah, I have to go back to that
Right, too.
thumbtacked item, if you will.
Just a minute, you'll be proud of me. We have to go back to page 22.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to refer to a particular page. It's just a concept. It's the proposal that Councilman Bliss brought up for body cameras. The cost is not, as I've had a chance to talk with the chiefs about it and look at the policies throughout the area. It seems like a pretty good idea, and I think it's as much for the safety as the officers as anything else. The cost, as I understand it, is not in the cameras. It's in the storage. That's the problem with those things and holding on to it. I noticed Sheriff Bouchard I was just listening to a press conference where he was being interviewed on it, and he's had to adjust his FOIA policies to reflect that reality. I think you've got 7 days now to request the tapes, or, well, I guess it's not tapes, the digitized recordings. But I would, I know it's being studied, but I'd like it a little more than that. I definitely would like to see it put in the process, where if not this year, certainly at the latest, the first quarter of the next fiscal year. So that would be the first of, what is this 50, so 16, 17 year. I think it's certainly more than enough time to get policies in line. Because there's a number of decisions we talked about. Is it on 24/7 or 100% of the time the officer? I said the guys. I don't want to know what they did on the weekend as they're driving around. That's not pertinent to anything. But there have to be some reasonable use and policies developed for it. And I think in a year we ought to be able to work out those details. And more importantly, the cost structure and the storage issues that the councilman's identified previously. So. But I would support it, and I think it's something that just in the past few years for issues that this council has dealt with would have saved plenty of money several times over on claims unfairly against our officers. So, or at least there's no guarantee, as has been pointed out to me. It's just a viewpoint, but we reasonably could expect that the officers could have been spared any needless claims and accusations that could have been easily disproved. So I would like to see that earmarked for the next fiscal year. That's all, sir. Thank you.
We keep saddling them, the police officers, with more and more equipment each day, don't we?
Well, they're going to come out looking like RoboCop someday.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. My goodness. Any other questions, comments from anybody?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just to piggyback on what Councilman Corbett said and add a little bit to it, the state right now has several bills in motion to be able to identify some of those changes. It's kind of a time and place thing. A lot of cities are testing it. Grand Rapids just rolled out, I think, 200 body cameras for their officers. Detroit's testing it. You know, it's becoming very commonplace, and throughout this year, a lot of those new laws and new policies will be flushed out. Recommendations to communities will be flushed out. I just want us to be prepared that when they do, we're able to take action pretty quickly because we'll have done our due diligence. And as Councilman Corbett said, I mean, the cost is fairly negligible, especially when you factor in the potential savings down the line in just having that tape that tells what the truth really was. And there's a nice protection in that. But I'd like that to be a priority, and I know it's under the $10,000 threshold, as you know, we've seen from some of the numbers that we've gotten, I think for 30 cameras. So it's something we could implement fairly quickly, but just to keep an eye on those policies and keep an eye on what's happening in Lansing, so that way when they're there and they're ready, we're able to move, whether that's in next fiscal year or if it pops up sometime in this one.
Any other questions, comments?
Your Honor, could I get a little more feedback from
I beg your
council?
pardon?
Could I get a little more feedback from the rest of council on the body cameras in terms of the level of priority?
I'll put my 2 cents in, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid that it's just, this subject is a shiny, flashy, easy thing to sell to the newspapers and the public, but I'm more interested in what capital projects that the actual police department is interested in. I mean, it'll be fun for me to talk to all the reporters that I put cameras on my police officers, but if they don't have guns at work, or if they don't have simple radios at work, I mean, that's not helping our department. So I think we need to, like what Councilman Corbett says, slow down, let's review the policies, and FYI, we now have a well-educated crime commission, and this may be a really good study subject for the crime commission, where the crime commission can sit down. You know, crime commission meets in the police department. They have great access to our officers and command staff. Our crime commission can sit down with the actual men and women on the street and say, look, we want to buy you this new shiny toy. Is this really what you want? What else do you want? Maybe there are some other considerations, not just the policy and politics of putting cameras, but maybe there's something else we're missing. I don't sit in a patrol car. Those guys do. Those women do. So maybe there's something we're missing. So I agree we should slow this down, send it to the crime commission for review. It's, like you said, it's a negligible cost. We might be able to find it in the couch cushions, but I don't know if it should be something that's in the capital improvement plan. I don't know if it meets a
Your
dollar
Honor,
threshold.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was just going to comment later, assuming there's interest on a majority of council to move forward in 16-17. I was just going to remind council that the CIP only includes items over $30,000. So if the cost stays well under that, you won't see it in the CIP, but don't assume that it's not.
Well, I guess my point is, I don't want cameras on our officers unless council has voted yes or no. And before council even considers it, I certainly want detailed staff reports and some sort of detailed report from the police department. And it'd be great if the crime commission could be involved to study the subject.
And Your Honor, there also could be a potential labor implication from this as well.
Your Honor?
Yeah, it's amazing actually that you see 6 or 8 incidents throughout the United States that shouldn't have happened. Now they want everybody to wear body cameras. I mean, we're putting more chains on these chains on them each day, each time, you know. Pretty soon you're going to get a cop that doesn't want to work. Why take the job? Yes, sir.
I don't mean to put the chief on the spot, but Chief, do you have an opinion on the body cameras?
At this time, I am currently researching it. There are several pros and cons to the body cameras. I am going to be providing council with a detailed report, and it will show that.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think it definitely deserves consideration and study, because sometimes the liability costs against our officers are atrocious and eat us alive sometimes. So I think it would. And would evidence like that hold up in court?
Yes.
Does it usually stand up? Okay.
Yes. Also, our city attorney's office is looking at the legalities of it as well. Privacy issues going into residents' homes, things like that.
Yeah.
And Your Honor, I had the opportunity at the City Managers Institute last January to attend a presentation given by two of the Johnson Rosati attorneys whom we've dealt with here individually on the subject. So I think getting the MMRMA's take on it would be valuable as well.
Good.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think we should leave it more or less up to the chief, deputy chief. Excuse me. They're around this all the time. They see other departments, they talk to other departments all the time. They get more information. Excuse me. And I think more or less leave it up to them right now to see what the other departments are doing. What their thought is on it.
Aren't we telling the police officer when you puts on this camera, we don't trust you?
No.
That we have to,
No.
no.
We don't touch
No, I mean, I'm
No.
just, yeah.
No, with respect, Your Honor, don't go there. That's not fair. That has absolutely nothing to do with it at all. It is the dead opposite. It's the dead opposite. And, you know, I can cite you 2 or 3 cases, I can't do it at the table right now, where there were hundreds of thousands of dollars that this council spent that might have not have been, and our guys didn't do a thing wrong. At least in my opinion, they didn't do a thing wrong, and they may or may not have been saved by the photos. So no, don't do that.
Okay, that's my question, yeah.
It does. It is included. A criminal defendant could use that in his exoneration and his defense if somehow the written facts are different than what is recorded in the camera. But that's not the main thrust, but it is one part of that. I think Councilman Corbett, it has illuminated the broader picture that it protects our officers and protects our city from wrongful civil lawsuits, but it also has to go into exonerating the wrongfully accused if that ever happens.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just one last comment on that.
Thanks, Chief.
There, in any one place, I mean, in this room right now, there's more than 20 cameras. You know, we all have them in our pockets. And so being able to put one on our officers does also help establish the context. You know, if somebody else is recording, the context that they're recording and their viewpoint might be different from that of the officers. And so putting a body camera on our officer helps to show the story from their perspective, which is part of the reasoning behind it. And there's a lot of reasonings behind it. There's a lot of pros and cons, as Chief said. This is just something that needs analysis, and Lansing's doing a lot of the heavy lifting right now. We just need to be paying attention and waiting for, you know, what those new laws are going to be. They're making some changes. I believe a new bill out there would classify anything recorded in public as fair game, but establish specific restrictions if you're entering somebody's residence. And so that's being flushed out right now in Lansing, because again, this is a hot topic, and it's one that merits a lot of deep consideration and a lot of debate going forward. But it's something that should be looked at over the course of this next year.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
A separate subject. Oh,
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
did you want to stay on the past subject? I'm gonna change.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying, you know, you look at the police, I don't know how they catch people on foot anymore. You look around their waist, and there isn't an empty spot on their belt.
No, you're right. Yeah.
But somehow, they managed to outrun some of these marathon runners. That's all.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, new subject. You know, council gets tarred and feathered 12 months a year over the fees, various fees. I couldn't find the fee schedule in these documents. Is it not in it this year? I thought we usually get that fee schedule. You know, the fees for the RV lot, the fees for 100 other things.
We normally do provide just the fees that are going to go up, and I neglected to bring it today.
Could we get it in the adopted version? Oh, okay, budget
Yeah,
resolution.
it's detailed out for the budget resolution.
Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So this is a workshop, and I just want to give my opinion. Again, I don't want to keep laboring the point, but in terms of the seniors, I'd like to see our support allocation to provide some type of postage, printing, to get that word out about the homebound meal delivery. You know, some type of nominal fee. Doesn't have to be much. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to ask a question. I'll wait till you.
No, I was going to go on to a different.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, Councilman, are you looking for a city-wide mailing?
I guess we'd have to look at the costs associated. I assume.
My suggestion to handle two birds here is our city newsletter would be a very good avenue that's already going out. We could certainly highlight that as part of the newsletter.
Mr. Mayor, do we ever use words on water bills which go to every resident?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's another way.
But I still would like to see an independent
Your Honor,
flyer.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
I would still like to see some type of independent flyer that goes out or mailing.
Yeah, I was just trying to find a way. Perhaps if we, if the issue is having it front and center, we could certainly put a blurb on the cover of the newsletter that would be, it wouldn't be buried in 20 pages, that maybe could get the same point across just as effectively.
But we could designate, or we could find out the age of who we deliver it to, right? Mail it to? Is there a way to find out the mailing list?
Yeah, to do that, and I know there are marketing experts in the room, we would have to engage a...
Or the voter list, you know, or something.
But then you miss people. That was my first thought.
Yeah,
but then you
voter
miss
list or
people.
engage a service.
Absentee ballot voter list. So can we, if we could look into that, I'd certainly appreciate that. Secondly,
one more thing before we do that
Sure.
topic, please, Your Honor. Melissa corrected me on the water bill issue. We would have to do a separate insert for that. We couldn't put like the text at the bottom just because of space limitation.
Okay.
Also, I understand the realities of our budget and the times that we live in, but I'm going to keep laboring the point about, and I assume that the rest of the council agrees that we need that special investigations unit for the police. I know in reality we can't afford it, but I think it's something that's critical that we need to do. And another thing, quickly, is the VFW. What a sad day that our VFW hall closed. Is there a way? I mean, I'd like to see if there's a possibility that we could help them. I mean, can we reach out to them and see what financial situation that they're in?
Your Honor, I got a report, and there's something on their sign that says they're reopening soon.
Oh, is that right?
Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's reopening under new management. I don't know if, I don't,
Yeah.
that could mean a lot of things. But if you drive by there, you'll see it has, one of the guys on Lincoln was posted something, and I saw it, and it said reopening soon. And then I turned around, and somebody told me they were merging with Ferndale, so I really don't know what the story is. So something's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, though. It's a shame. They're great folks, and I hated to see that happen to them. Back to you.
That's all,
Anything
Mr. Mayor.
else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Well, thanks everybody for being here, and we will adjourn at this time.